Hey guys, this is Becca. Welcome back to my channel. I'm a homeschool mom. We have 3 sons, and today's video is one of the most requested videos that I get, and it is what we do for spelling and grammar in our homeschool. We use the Simply Charlotte Mason spelling wisdom books, and we also use for grammar her Using Language Well book. So with the Simply Charlotte Mason curriculum, grammar and spelling start in the 3rd grade. I did it just a little bit differently. I used just the spelling book for Isaiah when he was in the 3rd grade. And then that next year, I did the spelling wisdom book in conjunction with the Using Language Well book, which I believe she recommends from the start in the 3rd grade. I will show you those books and kind of how we do it. It might be modified or tweaked a little bit from what Simply Charlotte Mason recommends, but we've just kind of over the last 5 years found a groove that works for us, and we just kind of go with that. So I mentioned the Spelling Wisdom Book 1 that I used for Isaiah starting in the 3rd grade, and it looks like this on the front. But we've had the book for so long that our Spelling Wisdom Book 1 looks like this. So you'll see it like this, but this one says Book 2, but this is actually Book 1 right here. So in the 3rd grade, like I said, I just used the Spelling Wisdom Book 1 book with Isaiah, and I did not formally introduce grammar until the 4th grade. So I'll tell you what I did in the 3rd grade with Spelling Wisdom Book 1. Charlotte Mason and the Charlotte Mason approach does not have spelling lists from week to week. You learn spelling and grammar through poetry and literature and copywork. And if you're not familiar with copywork, it's basically just copying onto, your own paper or notebook, large chunks of, or it can be small chunks too. It can be scripture, it can be poetry, it can be, excerpts from classic literature. And of course, it needs to be age appropriate. So I will open up to exercise 1 in Spelling Wisdom Book 1. So the first day that Isaiah ever did spelling, we opened up to exercise 1, and it happens to be Charlotte Mason's motto for students. And you can see right there that it says, I am, I can, I ought, I will. So Isaiah and I looked at this together, and I asked him, are there any words in this motto that you might not know how to spell? And the only word I remember with both Isaiah and Elijah was the word ought, O-U-G-H-T. And so I had them write it a few times. I had them shut their eyes and visually see it, O-U-G-H-T. I had them trace it in the air. I spelled it to them. So you're not just looking at it and making a spelling list, but any form of sensory or whatever helps them, that's typically what I will let them do. Once they feel like they can spell the word and have mastered it and have memorized how to spell it, then, we'll move on. But we won't move on until they actually copy this themselves. Because what's really important is to transcribe it correctly. So Charlotte Mason's approach is see it written right and write it right. He will copy it, making sure that he is capitalizing everything as it's seen. He's spelling everything as it's seen. Even the punctuation, even though we did not introduce grammar the first year in the 3rd grade like she recommends, I still asked Isaiah to, write the semicolons. And I didn't go into detail. I just said, after each of these couple of words, that's called a semicolon. I didn't explain what it was or when you use them. I just told him that's a semicolon. Because I knew that we were going to start grammar the next year, and we would get into all that. But right now, I'm concentrating on him spelling the words accurately, correctly, and we're working on penmanship as well. So Everything needs to be spelled correctly, and it needs to be your best handwriting. That is all that we did for Isaiah. So I'm not remembering 100% how much we got through Spelling Wisdom Book 1 in that first year. But I think we got pretty far. I think a little more than halfway through. The exercises are Proverbs. You have stuff from the Psalms. You have stuff from the Deer Slayer, Robert Louis Stevenson, a quote by John Howard Payne, an excerpt from The Pioneers by James Fenimore Cooper, a quote by Benjamin Franklin. So all of this is from classic literature and classic poets and, scripture. So quality stuff here that the kiddos are looking at and copying. Moving on to the 4th grade. So like I mentioned, Isaiah just used the spelling book in the 3rd grade. Then I introduced her grammar curriculum in the 4th grade, and that is this book right here, and it's Using Language Well, Book 1. So if you're going to do both spelling and grammar, you're going to want to combine these two. So you're going to want Spelling Wisdom Book 1 and Using Language Well Book 1. The lessons and the exercise correspond with each other. So when you're on lesson 1 in your grammar, you're on exercise 1 in Spelling Wisdom. Okay? So what we're going to do here is, I'll just open up to a random one. Let's see. Okay, I'll open up to exercise 3 in Spelling Wisdom Book 1. And so it's going to be lesson 3 in Using Language Well, Book 1. Okay? So you're going to have these side by side on the table, right in front of the kiddo. You're going to look at lesson 3. And then under it, it's going to say, from exercise 3, a proverb on practice. Number 1, turn to exercise 3 in Spelling Wisdom Book 1 and read the proverb. Tell what it means. So we'll look at exercise 3 together. Exercise 3, a proverb on practice. I have the boys read that. Then they'll read the proverb to me. Practice what you preach. Okay, so they'll read that. They'll tell me what it means to practice what you preach. That's always good dialogue when there's little things like this. So have just a little discussion about it. And then number 2 right here, it's going to ask you in lesson 3. So there's number 2 right there. It says, words can be divided into pulses, much like music notes can be divided into beats. Each pulse is called a syllable. In the proverb, see which words have 1 syllable and which have 2. An easy way to determine syllables is to clap your hands as you say the word. You would only get 1 clap, for it is said with only 1 pulse. But practice has 2 pulses or syllables and would get 2 claps. Practice. What other words in the proverb only have 1 syllable? So we'll look back at the exercise and go through each word, see which ones have 1, which ones have 2, and then we will move on to number 3 in lesson 3, which says, transcribe the proverb below. Be careful to spell every word correctly. Write in your best handwriting. And that is it for the front portion of Using Language Well. And of course, this is just lesson 3, so it's still, very basic stuff in grammar. Once you get a little bit further in the book, which I don't think I mentioned this, but so you're going to use the book for 2 total years. So Isaiah did just Spelling Wisdom in 3rd grade. Then in 4th grade, I actually had him start over with Spelling Wisdom, exercise 1, so we could approach it with lesson 1 here. So he did the first half of Spelling Wisdom Book 1 and Using Language Well Book 1 for the 4th grade. In the 5th grade, he completed both of these. So the last half of Spelling Wisdom Book 1 and the last half of Using Language Well Book 1. I think it's lessons in exercise 1 through 70 the first year, and then 71 through 140. So he did this for 4th and 5th grade. This year, he actually, since he finished book 1 of Spelling Wisdom and Using Language Well, he moved on to Spelling Wisdom book 2 and Using Language Well book 2. So he did the first half. He's actually, I think, a little more than halfway. And then we will finish up the rest of Spelling Wisdom book 2 and Using Language Well book 2 next year. And so at Christmas time, he'll be finished here, and he'll move on to book 3 of these. And we're also going to introduce analytical grammar, which is another curriculum that she suggests just for a little more in-depth grammar study. The good thing about these is that you have them for 2 years. You're using them if you start in the 3rd grade like she suggests. You have Spelling Wisdom book 1 and Using Language Well book 1 for 3rd grade and 4th grade. And then you move on to Spelling Wisdom book 2, Using Language Well book 2. You use that for 5th grade and 6th grade. And then you move on to book 3 and then analytical grammar. My voice is a little scratchy. There are pollens and allergens everywhere in Texas right now. And I actually told a friend in church this morning that I felt like Phoebe Buffay on Friends singing, like the smoky kind of Stevie Nicks voice actually helped my singing in worship this morning. Any other Friends fans out there? As the year progresses, clearly they're going to be doing things that are a little more in-depth and difficult than syllables and where to put a period or, where to put a question mark. So towards the end of Spelling Wisdom, let's just look at exercise 104, The Captain's Clothes, from Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. So this is toward the end of the book. Remember I told you there's only 140 exercises and 140 lessons. So this is what we're looking at towards the end of 4th grade for Spelling Wisdom and Using Language Well. So let me turn to the corresponding lesson. So this is Spelling Wisdom book 1, exercise 104. I'm going to go to Using Language Well, go to the corresponding lesson, which is lesson 104. Okay, here we go. Lesson 104. From exercise 104, The Captain's Clothes. So just like with earlier lessons, you're looking at number 1. It asks you to read the exercise in Spelling Wisdom book 1, exercise 104. So they would read this entire excerpt from Treasure Island. Number 2, review your English points about capitalization in your journal on page 149 in the back of this book. You should have guidelines about capitalizing. So here's the guidelines. You see them in bullet points right there about capitalizing. So in previous exercises and lessons, she makes a point to talk about English points. So you turn to the journal that's in the very back, and I will show you this one. So right here, you'll see English Points Journal. And up top there, it says Capitalization Guidelines. So right above that, it says, as you discover guidelines for capitalization, punctuation, and spelling in the exercises of Spelling Wisdom, record them below. This journal will help you remember those English points. Okay? So here's when to capitalize. Here's when you don't capitalize. There's also punctuation guidelines. So question marks, semicolons, when to use an apostrophe, quotation marks, dialogue punctuation, when to use a colon or a comma. Yes, that is how Using Language Well book 1 and Spelling Wisdom book 1 correspond with each other. Again, you're using the first 70 lessons in the 3rd grade with both books, and then you finish that up in the 4th grade and then move on from there. And so for Isaiah, it looks similar again last year and this year for Spelling Wisdom book 2 and Using Language Well book 2. But again, the content is just going to be a little more difficult since he's moving along in grammar. So the same thing he's still doing in book 2 on both of them. Again, the exercises are just looking a little bit longer. Also, we're doing much more dictation. With Elijah, I've started to dictate a little bit to him, but he's still transcribing, which is just looking at the exercise and transferring what he's seeing over to his own notebook and doing copy work or transcription. So next year, Elijah will get more into dictation as he's more comfortable with punctuation and so forth. Both of these come with a teacher guide, so you always have the correct answers here. And these are really helpful sometimes because I forget, okay? So I cannot remember some of these guidelines. So you always have all of the answers to all of the questions right here. So no need to worry about that. You do not have to be a grammar expert. You just need to have one of these books. That is it on spelling wisdom and using language well with Simply Charlotte Mason. I'm probably leaving some stuff out. I'm going to think about it later as I'm editing this video. But I hope it was helpful to you. I hope I explained things well. If you have any questions, I would love for you to leave them in the comments below, and I can answer some questions maybe I didn't answer in this video. I will say, because I'm sure I'll get the question, if grammar and spelling have been difficult for us or if there have been tears, and the answer is no. It's not their favorite subject to do, and it's actually not my favorite subject to help guide them in. That's why it's actually taken me so long to make this video, even though it's a most requested video. It's just not my favorite thing to do with the boys. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any more video suggestions or you would like me to talk about something specific to motherhood or homeschooling, I would love to hear your suggestions down below. And if you've been hanging around here a little while and haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I would love for you to consider subscribing so you can see more content like this. I hope everyone is having a great day. Until next time.